Joining me now, Republican Congressman from Texas, Dr. Ron Paul. Dr. Paul, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Let's get right to your plan. This week, you unveiled a plan to cut the deficit and to deal with the economy. The key elements of it is that you want to cut $1 trillion of spending in the first year. To do that, you would eliminate 5 cabinet departments: energy, housing and urban development, commerce, interior, and education. On Monday in Las Vegas, you unveiled the plan, and this is what you said about it.
I have a personal conviction that this will not hurt anybody. You cut government spending, that goes back to you.
How is that possible that a draconian cut like this would not hurt anybody, particularly in this economy?
Because we have to take this money from the economy, and the politicians get to spend it. So that's a negative. It hurts the economy. After World War II, we cut spending by 60% and cut taxes. 10 million people came home. And all the money and the expenditures went back to the people, and that was finally, we got over the Depression by having these draconian cuts.
But you have the education system in the state that it's in with big federal contributions now, nuclear energy safeguards after what happened in Japan, environmental protections. Nobody gets hurt under President Paul's plan?
We cut back on those, and the Department of Energy I cut, but some of those things are just transferred to the DOD department, nuclear controls and things like that. So they aren't eliminated, but they are significant. I'm the only one that's offering it. I mean, if spending is a problem, which all the candidates have claimed, spending too much and the debt's too big, but who's proposing it? See, to me, the question I ask myself is, what should the role of government be? And I've come down to a conclusion that it shouldn't be that we're the policemen of the world and we have this runaway entitlement spending. So therefore, if the role of government is the constitutional approach, you can't keep spending like this, because now we face this worldwide crisis of sovereign debt. That's our big problem, but you can't deal with that unless you cut spending.
The Fed chief has said to focus so exclusively on debt reduction as you would do could harm our prospects of reviving economic growth.
I just used a perfect example. By draconian cuts after World War II, it stimulated the economy because the resources aren't diminished. The resources are put back into the economy, and the people spend the money. But now all we do is give them debt. We tax, we borrow, and then we inflate, and then we distort the economy, so we destroy the production because the government takes over the economy, and that's the negative.
As you well know, you have a lot of support among young people.
That's right.
They're borrowing to pay for college at record levels. Would you abolish all federal student aid?
Eventually, but my program doesn't do it. There's a transition in this.
But that's your ultimate aim.
Yes, because there's no authority to do this. And just think of all this willingness to want to help every student get a college education. So they're $1 trillion in debt. We don't have any jobs for them. The quality of education has gone down, so it's a failed program. I went to school when we had none of those. I could work my way through college and medical school because it wasn't so expensive. So when you run up debt, you print money, cost goes up in the areas that the government gets involved in, education and medical care and housing. So it's artificial and distorts the economy. So we have to look at the business cycle and the inflation, so it doesn't help the people. All this housing programs, they end up losing their jobs and losing their houses. I mean, what we're witnessing today is the failure of a Keynesian economic model, and today we have to replace it with something. We either replace it with more government and more authoritarianism, more controls, or we look toward the free market.
You mentioned housing. You would like to get the federal government out of housing completely. And right now, the mortgage giants, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, guarantee 90% of the mortgages in this country. So you'd get rid of the government's role.
Sure.
The government's always had a role in housing.
No, they haven't always had a role in housing. They created the monster. I mean, first the Fed creates the money, and then you have Congress get involved and say, you do this, this, and this, and then it becomes corrupt. They get involved in the derivatives business, and who gets bailed out? They got bailed out. So, no, it's a distortion of the market. You don't eliminate...
But play that through, Dr. Paul, because it's really quite jarring. There is no private market right now for mortgages.
Oh, no, that's not true.
Are you going to wind down these companies? Who would buy them? What happens to housing prices, to the housing market?
Well, the system would be cleansed. It would have been over and done with by now.
You say cleansed, so the market would crash again, and you think that's acceptable?
It should have had a sharp correction because it was artificially manipulated. And once you get this distortion, you have to correct the mistake. So you do what we did in 1921. You allow the correction to occur in 1 year, and you go back to work. If you keep transferring the debt from the private owners or the pseudo-private owners, the Fannie Mae's and the Freddie Macs that participated in the bankruptcy, you bail them out, and you bail out the banks, and you bail out the Wall Streeters. You dump all this debt on the people.
Let me ask